The Salt King's Feast. The village of Sacred Hollow had forgotten the taste of harvest. Crops withered into black ash before the sickle ever touched them. The river stank of dead fish, their swollen bodies rising like blisters upon its skin. Even the air was thin, as though starved of breath, leaving lungs raw and desperate. Children coughed until their ribs rattled like empty bowls. The old prayed to gods long buried, whispering to cracked idols no one remembered. And still, nothing came. Until one night, he returned. The Salt King. His crown was not gold but a jagged circlet of salt, glittering white in the moonlight as though carved from bone. His skin was pale, almost translucent, stretched too tightly across the angles of his skull. A robe of grey dust trailed behind him, leaving the earth cracked and crumbling wherever it brushed. No one asked how he had returned. No one dared. They remembered his reign, when the fields were fat, the granaries groaned, and yet the village whispered of pacts best left unspoken. Now, he stood among them once more. And with him came the feast. Tables bent beneath roasted boars, their eyes glazed in honey. Loaves of steaming bread split open like bursting hearts. Geese fattened with oils glistened as though alive. Barrels of ale frothed and spilled without end, as though time itself could not seal them. No one asked where it came from. They only ate. They ate until their bellies swelled and their laughter sounded like sobs. They ate until they slept in greasy stupors, fingers twitching as though still clutching morsels. And when dawn broke, the food remained. Always there. The Salt King spoke only once. I have returned to feed you, my beloved. Eat, and be loyal. And so they did. Days bled into weeks. A change crept into Sacred Hollow. The villagers devoured endlessly, yet their faces hollowed, skin thinning like paper. Their eyes grew pale and glassy, reflecting not light, but absence. Children wailed in the night, clutching their swollen stomachs, even as grease ran down their lips. Men tore each other open for scraps, even as the tables overflowed. Women chewed pork fat until their lips split and bled, never tasting enough. The food never ended, but neither did the hunger. And the Salt King smiled, salt crusting at the corners of his mouth, as if he too was dissolving into them. Father Edric, the bent priest of Sacred Hollow, was the first to see the truth. He watched his flock shrivel, not of body, but of soul. They no longer prayed to the river spirits, nor the gods of wheat and sun. They knelt only before the Salt King, mouths wet with worship, eyes hollow as caves. And the more they adored him, the hungrier they became. One night, Edric gathered the courage to speak. He confronted the Salt King in the great hall, where food lay piled higher than the rafters. "What manner of blessing is this?" he cried, voice breaking against the heavy silence. "You starve us, even as you feed us." The Salt King's smile widened, his teeth glittering like jagged sea crystals, each sharp enough to cut the tongue. "Child," he whispered, his voice carrying the sting of brine and the hiss of waves pulling stones beneath them. "You do not eat food. You eat your need." He stepped closer. Salt flaked from his lips, dusting the priest's robes like snow. "And I am your king, your famine, your god. You feed me with your hunger, and I feed you with its shape." Father Edric staggered from the hall, his ears ringing with the king's words. Every breath tasted of salt. Every shadow seemed to writhe with hunger. He tried to warn the villagers. He cried from the steps of the chapel, voice raw and desperate, "You are not eating bread. You are not drinking ale. You are consuming yourselves, your need, your emptiness." But they only laughed, mouths wet with grease. Children tugged at his robes with hands sticky from honey, their teeth already crumbling like chalk. The old hurled stones at him, hissing that he blasphemed against their savior. That night, Edric dreamt of an endless shore, where waves of salt water rose higher and higher, breaking not upon sand, but upon heaps of gnawed bones. He woke choking, the taste of brine in his lungs. And outside, the villagers feasted in silence, chewing, swallowing, staring at nothing. The feast swelled to madness. Villagers tore at one another, not for food, but for the act of hunger itself, scratching, biting, rending flesh from bone in desperate ecstasy. Yet the tables remained untouched, overflowing with meats and breads no one could taste. Father Edric entered the hall once more. The Salt King sat upon his throne of salt, eyes like bleached moons, smiling with a patience older than oceans. Edric fell to his knees. "End it," he whispered, trembling. "Take me instead. Take my hunger, my faith, my soul, but release them." The king leaned forward, voice like waves dragging a body under. "Child, you do not yet see. They do not feast for me. They feast for themselves. I am only the shape their emptiness takes." Edric raised his eyes to the banquet. At last, he saw it truly, not food, not flesh, not bread. Only grey heaps of salt, piled high, and villagers clawing, licking, devouring, their mouths bleeding from the sharpness of the crystals. he screamed. The king's smile widened, and with it, the hall collapsed into silence. In Sacred Hollow, the feast never ended. It never ends.